shipment lift went through, I think it was done by SO or Shell or those things like that. You could remember the tremendous challenges that we faced, you know what I mean? So we just don't think you just like any other thing the government is doing, you just simply just don't announce it, you don't stop, there's no transition period. We find out that if they do that, there's no secretariat, there's no person or groups that have been retained to do this. What we do feel is that the government would like to sell the crude to specific individuals, bypassing international competitive pricing, which is, is floated internationally and updated every single day. Even by the minute, they would like to do that, and they would like to sell our crude to specific nations and specific individuals at whatever price the government agrees. So therefore, we have a grave concern in what they are doing and how they're doing it. Thank you.
Can I ask
before my second question before my second question is answered, can you say how do you respond to the reason being given by the government that this is all about cutting out the middlemen and reducing costs? And to what extent do you believe that the national oil company, the establishment of a national oil company, can assist in the transparent marketing of the crude?
Dennis, and I know for sure that one of the things that since discovery, one of the things that even the past administration was considering, I know for sure because I had made that recommendation to Minister Trotman, is to establish a national oil company. But unless I'm missing something here, is that I don't think that's where this is going. In terms of establishing a national oil company, because you have to establish the national oil company first, which is not an easy thing anyway. That would take maybe a few years to even establish that company. You've got again to build that expertise to develop that company. But I don't think the two we might be getting the cart before the horse here in terms of going out and marketing without having that national oil company. But you're right. I think it's absolutely necessary for us to establish a national oil company that can take over those type of responsibilities. But it would take some time for building that national oil company.
Let me also
and the
say,
question about the cutting out of the price, the question of reducing cost, that was one of the reasons advanced by government.
But before Kemraj comes on, look, listen to me. We have to look at this in the backdrop of the audit, the pre-2016 audit has not been done, and the reason even though GRA said it has been completed, 15 months later, the government has said to us that they don't have the local expertise. The $9.5 billion worth of audit up to 2018 has not been done because there's not enough local expertise. There is no local expertise at the moment. So I don't know which middleman you're going to be cutting out, right? Somebody locally, if you're going to say that, has to be marketing our oil. If there's nobody locally to be marketing our oil, they don't have the international linkages, you have to, these are spot prices, as you would say, on the spot, they go up and down and those things like that. So sometimes they may use this cutting out the middleman theory, but that's sometimes you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. Because unless, I want you to be clear on it, Dennis, we are almost certain they've already have a purchaser for the crude. And individuals who they want to do it. So therefore, this is only a smoke scream about saving money and those things like that. They already have someone lined up, close associate to them maybe, or a close government to them, or whatever it is, and they're going to sell directly to that person on the pretense that you are cutting out the middle person. But they're not going to go on the international market to where you're going to get the best price.
They did say reportedly that they'll be selling to India. So that's what has been reported.
Yeah. Yes, but is that the best price for Guyana? it might be the best price for the PPP politically. I don't know, but is that the best price for Guyana? I mean, you know that the every single day if you're going to stock market or the Brent crude oil index right now, and the cost is changed per hour. If, for example, there's the escalation in Ukraine and Russia happens, the price will skyrocket. It de-escalated, the price will drop. So therefore, and all of that would affect Guyanese. So therefore, not selling to India, I mean, they probably would have a fixed price, and it may be better for them, but not for the country.
I think Raj wanted to come in.
Yeah, the variables are tremendous here, Dennis. And the capacities and capabilities of this government, and also the suspicions of dealing with people like Sue and all, creates tremendous suspicion on our part, and I think the larger Guyanese community, as to when the government is going to take a charge of this kind of thing. And that is why, without that capacity and capability, it can be very detrimental and disadvantageous to us, although the pretext is not being used that they're cutting the middlemen. There might be, cutting into the pricing that we could get that is far superior to what the middleman could get. And that is something. Only this morning, I see that the prices have gone up almost 14%. Pricing, and so all of these variables are supposed to be then tended or superintended by somebody that knows, not a government that is wholly unfit in relation or without any expertise in this matter. So we must learn to give to the people who know. Of course, they will charge their certain prices, but you know that you are getting the best of deals, short term and long term, and even middle term.
Just to add, and Dennis, I would challenge, and I'm not saying that maybe it does exist in terms of saying that it's cheaper. Absolutely, it's very simplistic. Conceptually, to anybody, it would appear if you cut out the middleman, it sounds simple and nice. However, it's a case of having the expertise, and that's why you have consultants. Even Guyana. Guyana is flooded with consultants, and the reason is because we do not have the expertise. Now, we can say, well, here, if we cut out the consultants, we could do it cheaper, but that's not the case because it's going to cost you more in the long run to get it done if you don't have the expertise. I mean, again, going back to the audit, it's the same exact thing. We couldn't do the audit because we didn't have the expertise. Those were the exact words coming out from the leadership of the country. And which means that we're at risk for losing billions of dollars. It's the same exact thing, which means that, if we had gone out and paid, some sort of,
Professional,
a good sum to a professional, we would have had that money. So again, it comes. I would challenge the government to say, okay, give me your analysis why you're saying it's going to be cheaper. Who do we have to do it? Locally, and what's that expertise, and how is that going to compare to if we go out and get a consultant or not a company to do it? That is the standard way of doing it.
Thank you very much. I think Dennis had a follow-up question, and that was the board of the Natural Resource Fund and whether we would be sending a nominee. So I would ask Raj and to take that, and David, of course, you can jump in if you had comments.
Look, the appointments committee, I think, will have to start a process. I would want, of course, us to be present and ensure that there is thorough scrutiny and interrogation of those members that might be proposed to then constitute the member that should be on that board. And that is the place really where I would want to start. At this stage, I don't know the appointments committee starting the process, but I'm absolutely certain that it will soon start. I quite frankly believe that we should participate in that process and take it from there.
In addition to that, I want to say that I know for sure that the Alliance for Change, but I'm unaware. I can't confirm if the AP and UAFC, if we have been invited to make any nominees. I don't think we are. I don't think Cameron is on a appointed committee. I don't even think we've seen the technical qualifications or the blueprint or whatever it is for selecting or recommending a nominee. So I do hope that whenever it goes through a process whereby first form department committee meets, just as we did with the Public Procurement Commission, and we do with all commissions. They thought that there is the PAC met, then they had public ads, they determine the criteria and the qualifications of the person, and then we go out and then we find suitable person, deliberate, and then bring it back to Parliament in the end to be approved. Without that process, it may just end up being the PPP just bringing a few names or even just one name, even though we can interrogate the person, those things like that. There'll be no other input from anyone else, and then of course with their majority, they can pass it. So I do hope that a process such as the appointment of the Public Procurement Commission, any other commission, is followed this time around.
Can I have a follow-up on the face of on the face of it? I understand what you're talking about, the criteria and so on, but on the face of it, all things being equal, would you be proposing a nominee, assuming all things being equal?
Well, yes,
Sorry,
if
Dennis,
there is.
Yeah.
No,
Can I-
assuming that we are given an opportunity, I am absolutely certain that we can propose. We have good names and who we feel can do a proper job and will be very independent, unlike what is happening at EITI and all of that. So we can find a name. And as you said, if all things are equal, certainly we would want to ensure that a very prominent and expert there to deal with the issue of the Natural Resource Fund.
David, did you
And how
want
do
to
you?
answer that? Hold on 1 minute, Dennis.
No, I concur. I mean, once you're given the opportunity, we will
Then-
obviously.
then-
And somebody, Davina, is raising their hand. Scott.
Yes, I would like to go to Davina and then we can.
I
also-
have a quick follow-up, a quick follow-up, please.
Dennis, you've had about 4 questions, so we'll come back.
So
to you.
I just wanted to know, how do you measure up nominating someone when indeed you have question marks about the way the legislation was piloted through the House?
I'd like to go to Davina and let's hear Davina. We want to have other persons participate and we'll come back to you. Davina, please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I have a quick question. It's for Mr. Ramjatan. So government has said that the NRF Act is a live document. Given that there are no penalties in place for the misappropriation of funds, for example, will the party be pushing for an amendment anytime soon to address these and other concerns in the Act? Also, what are your thoughts on the oil proceeds being put to use even without the installation of these various boards?
Look, the Alliance for Change has already stated by the Alliance for Change and APNU also, is that the previous 2019 Act was of tremendously greater effectiveness in relation to transparency and all of that. And to the extent then that we will have to formulate amendments to the Act to ensure that that which was covered previously is now covered, we are going to do so. What was the other question?
The
What?
question on the board.
Yeah.
And just Kamraj, I can probably take that because
Yeah, well, please take that.
I have stated on record previously that it really is a farce, and the consequence of farcical it is the question of we've already taken out gone to Parliament and taken $607 million out of the NRF fund. There's no board in place. So the rumor and the myth that the government is trying to say that this board has oversight in the spending and those things like that is another thing. Because of course we've already passed that. The government didn't even have the decency nor the transparency or even the attempt to be transparent to at least have this board in place, who by how it's set up, they can have 4 of the 5, or either 2 of the 3 or 4 of the 5 persons directly their nominees. That is not in place. Additionally, and I showed all of you media heard, during the budget debates and during the lead up to the NRF funding and after and the defense of it, they made reference that the Public Procurement Commission, the Public Accounts Committee can review the spending of the NRF fund. And that's all right because the PSC reviews all spending, but there is nowhere at least they fail to identify where exactly the money will be spent. So as you know, and I can tell you on projects, what happens at the PSC, the audit office takes a sample. They don't audit every single capital project, so therefore they take sampling. So because of course of capacity, and I've raised that out, the capacity, they can't audit, they can't investigate on everything. So we don't even know where the NRF funds are going to be placed in. There's a suspicion because of the big ticket items, the mega project business. We would like to assume that. We asked directly, is this being funded by the NRF fund? And not one of the ministers, including the Minister of Finance, was willing to answer that. Why? Why would you not want to say, well, this is money that we took from the NRF fund and we're going to build this project or that project? So, so those are some of the issues that we have. You have a board that will be appointed at, I don't know when, but all they'll be doing is sitting there and reviewing what the government has already been done. The previous 2019 Act had them oversight facility. They say they've now been reduced to review. So that is our issue that we have with the NRF fund.
I just want to mention this. The overall, what I call the mockery of the thing, has to deal with what are the functions of that board. We were asking questions in Parliament as to where did the NRF monies go in certain projects that are supposed to be in accordance with the Act, green initiative projects and developmental priorities. Now, we did not get an answer. Setting up a board would mean, in accordance with Section 5, that the board has, and these are the functions of the board, overall management of the fund. So when we parliamentarians could not get from the ministers where the NRF money goes, are we now saying that by setting up a board there, the board will get the answers because their function is the overall management of the fund, the reviewing and approving of policies of the fund, and the monitoring of the performance of the fund? I mean, we couldn't get the answers. They said that it's all made fungible and was now mixed up with a consolidated fund, which is a fund that has taxation, the levies, and all other, revenue streams that go into, so that you could then make the spendings. Right now, what will that board do? Because even it would appear the government does not know what the NRF fund has gone towards, what projects and so on. So what are they going to overall manage? What performance of the fund will they now superintend? It is all a sham. And so, because it's all hidden up now in the fungibility of the revenue streams, it being all in the consolidated fund. They didn't want to identify the project for us. So I believe that the thing is just one big mockery and a big farce. And so to set up, even when you go, the members of the board will have tremendous difficulty, because the first question they will ask them, and I'm just repeating myself here, which project did the $126 billion went towards? Which projects? They don't know themselves.
Thank you, Kamraj. Dennis, you want to raise your question again?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask, on the face of it, and that's the premise of the question, why would you even think of nominating someone to the NRF board, given the opposition's concerns about the way the new NRF law was piloted through the House and the claims of alleged lack of consultation and all of the other things that you've pointed to in the past?
I want to say this, good politicians that like good governance will then realize that although we oppose the act, it doesn't necessarily mean that the contents of the act cannot be as best as possible be fulfilled. And so although we have been in opposition and very vociferous opposition against this new act of 2021, that does not necessarily mean that if all things being equal, as you said, we are given an opportunity to nominate a competent, capable person, we will not do that. I think it will be bad politics on our part, and it will be not in the exercise of your right to go towards good governance.
And be sure, Dennis.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Look, I just want to, don't forget, irrespective of how legal or we see it or not, a fact is $607 million have just been taken out. No one, as Karen said, no one knows where it's gone. No one knows what is going to be done with it. And if you can get a person of high credibility on it, that is independent, maybe some light could be shed on processes.
Dennis, the AFC is not willing to give up the very important role of scrutinizing how Guyana's monies are spent. We have a responsibility to ensure we can scrutinize, regardless of the way we may be treated or how we come to the table. But primarily, we have to make sure that that money is put to good use, because it belongs to each and every Guyanese. I don't see any other hands raised. Are there any other questions from any member of the media?
A clarification, Kathy. Has the AFC consulted with the APNU about this whole question of nominating someone on the board of the NRF? Have you already started those discussions?
No, we haven't.
As far as I'm aware, no.
No, we haven't. Thank you, Dennis. I see Adam's hand up. Adam?
Yes. This one goes to any member of the panel. There is a lot of talk about Dr. Jadupat being removed from the EITI. And sometimes I get the impression that regardless of what is said, nothing changes. What is the view of the AFC to its various objections? Even in the case of some of the questions Dennis asked, you talk, you get nothing done, and life goes on.
Well, Adam, that is the political question that has to be resolved in Guyana. If this government is going to make de minimis the opposition and the consultative process, and also as a consequence of that, make itself all powerful in these institutions that are supposed to be independent, and bring back the control freakism that we saw prior to the 2020-15 period and so on, we are going to have massive disenchantment in this country. We are going to then, as a result of that disenchantment, see tremendous resentment. And the worst thing that can happen, as has happened in so many oil countries, is that creates civil strife and violence. And we must, I suppose that is why the USAID is pleading for what is called shared governance. Nothing in relation to that the budget debate and the estimates and so on were listened to by the government, forthcoming from the opposition. Everything we asked for was denied. The time, even the answers that we asked for, nothing. And now the NRF, no consultation, that kind of thing there. And I think I can speak for a lot of Guyanese that are angry. Those things can create that which we do not want, an implosion in this society. And it seems that the PPP likes to provoke this kind of nonsense. It is in that score that I said that we in the opposition sometimes can't do anything. When you put it in that regard, what could we do? It just goes on. But at some point in time, as always has been the lessons of history, you'd start getting civil strife. Is that what a PPP wants? And that is why I believe that it is time now, in view of what was said by the young girl in that Vice media thing, Barrett Jagdale, who is the stumbling block even from within the PPP from moving forward for a better governance. He should go. I think the time has come where, just like he did to Janet Jagan, he should be asked, you're a private citizen now, just go along away. Because he's one of the biggest scourge for proper movement, forward movement in Guyana. And you know, he loves the attention of it all. He loves to be the center of attraction. But obviously this one spiraled out of control for him, and it has caused him unimaginable loss, as it were. His invincibility has been busted. And if that could be, because he tries to be like a mini god, you know, because I know of certain other people in the People's Progressive Party that want to move on, but they're not being allowed to. And a lot of decisions are being made. Why is it that he has to go to and meet investors? We created an institution called Go Invest. Why he gotta go and talk to investors?
Why they
And
have
say
to
helping them out and all of that.
privately?
Yes, and
Why
talk
they
to them
have to come and
privately
talk to him
and arrange
privately?
somebody who is his tenant. I didn't even know that the man got a tenant. What nonsense is that? And there it is that you have it. He's now putting it, oh, geopolitics is the thing. The Americans don't like China. Come on. You got caught with your pants down and you're souping yourself. Get out of the place. It's about time. And so that we can move this country on.
Yeah, I think also that, you know, we need, as we all know, to change our political system. Guyana has not moved forward in the last 30, 40 years, really. I think that we need to recall January 6th and the impact it had on US and the US society. At the end of the day, when you have a large majority or any majority that feels totally disenfranchised, and here, of course, I'm speaking about the fracture, the huge fracture in American society. The folks that were very pro-Trump, January 6th was, of course, that demonstration on the Capitol. And you're seeing Mr. Biden today having to cross party lines, having to reach out, because 84 million folks that are not happy with you is a large amount and does not augur well for the stability of your country and being able to move forward. Similarly, in Guyana, 49% of the population, 49% of the population that feel left out will not augur well for a stable society. I will leave that observation right there. Any other questions?
Let me add to that.
Sure.
Because I
Sure.
noticed that my name has been dragged in here as part of the excuse for Dr. Jagapat. And it's, you know, I read the Minister Barrett, saying, well, Dr. Jagapat was a political appointee, just like Dr. Adams was. Let me put it on the record here, folks. I I think the honorable minister ought to go and I don't know if he's being misinformed or he's just being disingenuous. But my position when I became head of the EPA had nothing to do with political influence. I applied for. As a matter of fact, he was specific to say that my position, just like Dr. Jagopal, my position was not advertised. That is absolutely false. My position was advertised. I went through 2 rounds of interviews. As a matter of fact, I did.
AFC, the Guyana, or the international USA, Canada, UK. And I have never seen, and in particular, you corrected yourself, I think he has provided the vacancy notice to which he applied to, because he applied just like Dr. Adam, applied for a job. There's a vacancy notice in the Ministry of Natural Resources, then at the establishment of the GYEITI, he applied, interviewed, and got it. But it's quite disappointing that our media has not asked, even though Dr. Jagopal and the Alliance for Change did it, the media has not asked the minister or the PPP to show where in this process that either Dr. Adams or Dr. Jagopal had bypassed the requirement of being interviewed, assessed, and appointed if there was any diversion from that establishment. However, they just simply, just like the vice president does, Jagdeo does, just simply throws out a spew of untruths and fact checking. Sorry, gentlemen, facts checking and ladies by our media is never ever done. Never ever done. So therefore, you have a very competent and professional Dr. Jagopal who set up GYEITI, carried us through our first, second, and now through our third report. So and Guyana has risen because of GYEITI on the Corruption Perception Index, on several indices. And you could simply just throw out the untruths and tarnish a man's reputation and diminish the work and contribution that he would have made. And I really do hope that the independent media seek to get some sort of justification from the minister to prove what he's saying. If not, do not report untruths. Thank you.
I think what is equally sad is that we all know that in the US political system, and the US is supposed to be one of the strongest democracies in the world, that one is allowed to publicly declare whether you're Republican or whether, which side you were, or a Democrat. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the jobs that you apply for, your remuneration, how you're treated in the public space. And I think it has come to the time where Guyana needs to think differently, because really our politics is our personal, it's our personal business, and we need to do better. I'm assuming that there are no other questions from the media?
Yes, there is, Kathy.
Oh, I thought you forgot to take down your hand. Okay, Dennis,
No.
and this is going to be the last question
Yes,
because I know David has PAC. Go ahead.
yes. I quickly want to know why you think for successive governments, governing and opposition parties over the last few decades have only mouthed about power sharing, but whenever they get into office, they seem to abandon the idea. And secondly, relatedly, what do you think is required? What are the prerequisites for getting on board that idea of power sharing rather than winner take all, as stated in the U.S. Governance and Democracy Assessment?
Dennis, it is largely our politics that has caused that, and a politics in which we, and you talk about decades, but in that 5-year period, we tried as best to build good governance. I mean, there are tremendous amounts of examples that we can show that we did that. But what we are seeing here now is whereby absolutely nothing from the opposition is being taken on board. And that is what is creating this crisis, a crisis that could be avoided as a result of, or now altered to the extent of power sharing. We believe that a number of things are going exceptionally bad. And we now have evidence from a man named Sue about certain things that are going on. One of the things I must tell you is that when we had created what is called that 2-term limit, is that like in America and so on, the previous president must go and pasture. He's not supposed to come back. He's violating all the constitutional norms of 2-term limits because he's regarded so highly inside of the PPP. And you know, that is not good for us. It then means that the control freakism that we had before will happen again. But more than that, the control freakism from a Nigel Dharamlao, the sexist position that he's been taking, all of these now require us to ensure that we talk about sharing of power to the extent now that we can avoid that which this kind of conflict situation can bring, that is civil strife. And we better start learning that although we had a bad set of politics before that only talk about power sharing in opposition, it is indeed a correct projection, indeed a correct direction, and indeed a correct trajectory to now take, because of the fact that we could then say it is the best times and then the worst times, because we can have all this riches and the civil strife that it brings on can make it worth nothing at all. So you may
what I wanted to pin you down to, Council, is whether you believe that the Constitutional Reform Commission, this should be put on the table for the Constitutional Reform Commission of the National Assembly, or it should be inter-party dialogue.
It should go in both areas, and as a matter of fact, even stakeholder consultations all across. And that is one of the reasons why in our act, we put in 22 civilians to be the Transparency and Oversight Committee. Because in Guyana, a lot of civil society shy away from governance. And this was now a brand new fund that was going to be 10 times more than one revenue stream and so on will bring in about 5 years, the regular taxation and so on. And we wanted them to have a big handle on it. Not this 5-man committee, 4 of which will be appointed by the president. We wanted to bring in the civil society to ensure that they have this oversight and lots more than the oversight, because we feel that that is a form of power sharing. And we were getting there. We were asking the opposition to come and state boards. They don't want to, and so on. We did not go and tell the police or anybody to go and charge the previous ministers. We did a stock taking that ensured that civilian auditors like Anand Gulsaran, Christopher Ram, do things in relation to the stock taking at ministries. And if there was police matters, then we send it to the police. Then there was a check and balance that the DPP must charge. But what we have now is this sending some police officers, low ranks, to go and charge people without DPP approval and all of that. So imagine we were trying out as best as possible a better governance situation. What we have seen is a total collapse, and all the guardrails of democracy and good governance now being broken completely. And that is why now you better start thinking, because you can have lone wolves out there who can say, I can't take this crap anymore, and I'm going to do my thing. And then the regular politicians and political parties, then whatever they say doesn't matter, and then fellows say, we will take charge here now. And all manner of stupidities, all manner of craziness, all manner of violence can start. And that is what I am afraid of.
Thank you. So final question. I see the hand up for Bench Corp Radio. I'm going to allow the question very, very quickly. We're out of time.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Hughes. I don't know if these questions were answered, but forgive me for being late. Any move being made by the opposition to challenge the four-sitting suspension of Member of Parliament Sherrod Duncan? The other question concerning the revelation of Jack Deo and this whole allegation of corruption, bribery, whether the AFC would approach the police to launch an investigation into that. My other question concerning the Parliament, there's no opposition leader right now. What is the party's position on that? Thank you.
In relation to the challenges or whatever we can do in a matter like Sherrod Duncan, I have to tell you that there is very little that we can do now that the motion was corrected. When I had brought the observation to the speaker, indicating to him that he had done it wrong, I thought that the speaker was going to utilize the opportunity to then rescind the decision. And that is what was my motive. But the man did not rescind the thing. The man, having seen that he was then out of the sitting from that day that the behavior was made, and then the following day, then went and add on the additional 4 days. Now that is 6 days he will be out of the sitting. But they corrected the motion, asking Gail Teixeira to do the revised motion in the larger National Assembly. Now, that means, and as a lawyer that knows a thing or two about these, I believe is the end of the matter. And the courts generally do not want to interfere or judicially review the inner operations of Parliament. There are very many cases in that. And so I don't know what else we can do but to publicly talk about how this thing is a little, you know, not a little, but bad in the sense of the speaker being to the extent biased in that regard. And now unwittingly adding 2 extra days to the man's penalty.
I'd like to add that in a normal society, there would have been such outrage because very simply, it could never be quote unquote right and correct for you to penalize an individual that objected to the fact that the most vilest of comments against a woman, a sitting MP, was actually spoken in the Parliament, which is supposed to be one of the most honorable houses in any country, and that the person that perpetrated the vilest of comments is not sanctioned. And therefore it is an indictment on Guyana and all of us that we continue to sink to the lowest of the lows. And supposedly the speaker, the government, and all of us think that this is okay. I think there's one other question that we
Yeah,
want
the
to
opposition
answer,
leader.
and then we
Sorry,
can.
David,
close
you
off.
wanted to answer that? Because the opposition leader, if I may just answer it, the opposition leader position is exclusively something that APNU partner, the APNU partner will have to deal with. And we noticed that there has been the creation now of a vacancy as a result of the resignation of Dr. Henry Nicolette, which will take effect as from 31st of March. So I suppose once the vacancy is created, things will have to be done to get the leader of the PNC in for purposes of making that decision there.
And Mark, just quickly on the question of Sue and the revelations
Oh, yeah.
therein, I think we've already made, I hope you've gotten a statement on which I made about the serious, the issues. One, the coincidence of the new Demerara Howard Bridge contract being pulled unannounced as when during the interview, it was not known to everybody. In November of last year, the government said they were granted no objections for them to for the contract to be awarded to the Chinese firm. During the interview, and as I said before, I do suspect that's one of the contracts that Sue may have directed Vice Media to have a look at, and maybe even have given him them some further information on how that contract was being negotiated, and that's why it's been pulled. Even though that has been done, we still have reservations on the entire process. We are hoping that, and we would expect that the legal authorities, so whoever it is, would look into it. Obviously, we're not hopeful, but in any normal society, they would look into it. Then, Mark, you also have to remember that last year, it was revealed, I think, by Stabrook News that the government has approached the Chinese Exim Bank for $1.5 billion worth of loans. Some of it has already made its way, just like this will make its way into the budget, and they will call it public-private partnerships. All of these contracts has to be reviewed, because obviously now we know that they've been done. There's a middleman involved in it, as well as you have to look at the contracts that were done before. The Myler Falls contract would have been, if it wasn't reviewed by the government of the previous administration, that would have had a Sue type influence. CGIA, as you know, the last act that Bharat Jagdeo did before he demitted office in 2011 was sign the $138 million contract for CGIA. They were just like the New Demerara Howard Bridge. There was no feasibility study. There was no previous announcements. There was nothing at all. We just woke up one morning just before the elections to hear, and it was announced not in Guyana, it was announced in Jamaica that we have signed $138 million with China Harbor to build a new and modernize and build a new airport. There's no other announcement. So I think the legal authorities have to go back to look at that, because obviously Sue, as the vice president said, has been in the country for years. His father's been here 100 years. So we have to go all the way back. The East Coast, East Bank Road, you can remember it, the lowest bidder.
Skeldon Factory.
I mean, we have to look at the same financing. The East Coast Road expansion. I mean, that's another Exim Bank project. I mean, and Sue was in the country at that time, the vice president. Bharat Jagdeo was the president at that time. So we have to now go back, and I do think that this is where our policing investigate. Even so, even if the police are unwilling to, Mark, yourself and I would assume all the journalists here, you're investigative journalists, go back and look at the nexus. As I said, how far back did this go? It did not just happen with the projects that we're seeing now. You had the Rongon was here, not Rongon, Baishalin, because Rongon, when Baishalin ran into problems, that's when Rongon bought them out. So it's not Rongon. Baishalin deal, they came here. I mean, you could think of all those big things. Mr. Sue was here. His father was here 100 years. Presumably, if his father was here, he was here. Bar Jagdeo was president for quite a number of years and vice president now. So you should go back, Mark, and have do a listing of that. To me, Skeldon factory. The recommendation for the Skeldon factory was the firm from India to do it. If you can remember, all of a sudden, with no reasoning whatsoever, they were knocked out, and a Chinese firm was brought in. Maybe or maybe not. There was a Sioux type arrangement there. So as we've been saying in the Alliance for Change, in our release, once there is smoke, most possibly there is fire. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Kemraj, Vince Adams, and colleagues. I regret that we're out of time. Mark, I would ask you to pose your question via email to either myself or one of the representatives of the AFC, and we'll be more than happy to respond, and if necessary, even give you an audio clip of our response. Members of the media, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. And I do say to everybody, we know that the curfew has been lifted, but please stay safe. Take care, and thank you very much.
Happy Valentine's
Recording stopped.